we will start the second session at the moment. Let me introduce the speakers. The first speaker from Punto 24 Platform for Independent Journalism, Sumru Tamer, it's over to you. Thank you very much for organizing this valuable session. We're going through depressing times, but this meeting cheered us up. Thank you so much. I hope you can see my screen at the moment. I'm speaking on behalf of the Speak Up platform, and we're supporting the society to overcome censorship and self-censorship. We monitor violations of freedom of expression. We get information from the lawyers on a regular basis, and we publish the cases on our websites, and we also do archiving. We create a public opinion, and at the same time, this is a documentation work we do on our website. You can find extensive information on our website. We create special content on the website regarding recent cases, the cases regarding violations of freedom of expression, legal proceedings. So it's not just archiving censorship cases, but we also create a resource regarding the concepts around censorship. We follow the trials, investigations, and detentions taking place against artists, authors, and journalists. On some occasions, we personally follow the trials. Otherwise, we contact the lawyers on a regular basis and follow up the outcome of the trials and inform the public opinion. So that's how we follow up the trials taking place. Unfortunately, we haven't been able to do that well because of COVID conditions. Well, our website includes positive content as well in different fields like culture, art. We display good examples where people were able to overcome censorship. We publish interviews, and we enter into contact and communication with different organizations who work in this field, and we invite various organizations to be a part of our platform. I'll move on. We share the calls made by other cultural artistic organizations. For example, Ahmet Theater, there is a call to reopen the theater, or we publish the call made by Alta Solidarity Network. One other slide I'd like to share with you. We publish the website content in English as well. We translate the content into English to make sure international organizations can follow the content. I believe this proved to be quite successful. There are such organizations working in the field of freedom of expression, such as Freemuse, IFEX, PEN, A19. They show our website as a reference in some of the news they cover. We use social media very actively. We report around 10 cases on a daily basis, and we post on social media as well. We also have publications that we announce, events that we announced over social media. Around 100 followers we have per month, 100 new followers. And if we can sustain the project, we consider to open accounts over LinkedIn and Clubhouse. We have a weekly mail bulletin where we cover the news regarding censorship, or we announce events, and we share some columns, and we recommend books and documents. We rearranged our mailing list. This was very helpful. Journalists, members of academia, artists, politicians. We categorized the mailing list, and that is how we did targeting regarding the target audience. Around 800 new people joined our mailing list since the beginning of our project. We have a very active YouTube channel. We uploaded so many videos and we have so many new viewers and followers over YouTube. Let's take a couple of examples. Diyarbakır Literature House, Modern Art, Ahmet Urban Theater videos we have uploaded in the YouTube, and we have interviews with actors, actresses, trade union. You could find many short videos where we cover recent developments taking place in this field. We also had events over Zoom. They were shared on our YouTube channel too. Throughout the year, we ran some important campaigns. We produce special contents, produce videos. We cover some special topics such as Bakur case or group Yorum members' demands, or detained poet İlhan Çomak, or other content regarding the new internet law, enforcement law. So we launched special campaigns regarding some specific topics. And over 1 year, we produced a report that includes important analysis and graphs in the field of media, culture, and art. This was done in Turkish and English. We organized a launch event where we invited artists, members of academia, lawyers, bar associations, politicians, journalists, NGOs, and representatives from embassies. I will share with you the link regarding the report. This month, we'll focus on national advocacy work. We arrange contacts with members of the parliament. And we contributed to the art and culture part in the EU progress report. We also contributed to the UPR, Universal Periodic Review report. This was translated by us into Turkish. And let me talk about international advocacy efforts. UPR report preparation is an example. Let me tell you about the UPR. This is a 5-year, this report refers to a 5-year artistic freedom of expression scorecard. We present this to the UN, and other countries make recommendations to Turkey in this field. We contribute to this process. We went to Geneva for this, and we came back to Turkey, heard from Turkey, and lots of countries made recommendations, especially Norway made a recommendation regarding freedom in the field of art, and I believe we contributed in this. Throughout the year, we organized many panels. We intended to organize physical events, however, only one of them could happen physically. All the others were online. We also talked about censorship. And for example, in Diyarbakır, we discussed about the reopening of Ahmet Urban Theater. And we talked about the situation of culture and art after the appointment of trustees to the municipalities. We talked about access to information right violations in some other panels. We also had some urban-specific activities like Batman, Ankara, Eskişehir, culture and art atmosphere. We had 3 open stage events. Well, this platform is called Speak Up platform. We have around more than 7 participants in the platform. We gave the participants a space so they can express their views in the field. We organized interviews. These were published on our website. We gave them a platform to express their experience regarding the violations that took place. we believe this was very much needed because the participants asked us to organize such a panel. We organized workshops as well. One was regarding crowdfunding for culture and art professionals. We know in this field, these things are not happening in a transparent manner. And some donors also impose a kind of censorship regarding the way their funds could be spent. And in this workshop, we had practical activities where we discussed the ways in which we can overcome censorship. Another event had to do with the artistic freedom of expression over Wikipedia. We also brought together international actors and our participants. Well, that was our intention, but because of COVID, we couldn't do that as much as we wanted, unfortunately, but we could organize a panel where speakers from Turkey and abroad joined us, delivered speeches. We discussed about freedom of speech in the field of art, how violations take place, what international conventions and mechanisms are available, what are the mechanisms that we could use for advocacy. Probably tomorrow we will upload this panel on our YouTube channel. At the end of each project term, we had a wrap-up meeting with the participants where we evaluate the past year. We get comments about the project. We had this year's meeting. We got the feedbacks and the suggestions. We evaluated the project. And we got some other ideas regarding what could be done in the future and regarding what the needs are. One of the important goals we have is to open alternative spaces for exhibitions, festivals, plays to be displayed. We want to create alternative means. Before the pandemic, this was easier. Our office shares space with Coffee House Literature House. We have some means. We had some means before the pandemic. But unfortunately, we cannot organize physical events in our office. We hosted an exhibition by Zehra Doğan. We took hygiene measures, of course. And we provided video support and physical space support regarding a documentary prepared by an Armenian artist, prepared by two performance artists regarding Armenian genocide. And this is my last slide. We brought together artists, NGOs, politicians, members of academia from different segments of society. We invited them to our events. We increased and broadened our coverage. We published our events in different platforms. We had joint events too. We organized an event within the scope of a coffee house book fair, just an example. And we will continue to work in this field.
Thank you very much, Sumru. Freedom of expression is quite a tough subject, and you've implemented quite a long-term project on this issue. Now, I'd like to invite to the floor the second speaker from the Society and Law Research Foundation, Ms. Ferda Fahrioğlu Akın. The floor is yours. Thank you. Here we go. We work together with the foundation and the association to prevent discrimination. We had 3 target groups under the project. And could you make your screen full screen, please? Your presentation full screen, please? Thank you. And could you slow down a little bit when you speak for the sake of our interpreters? Thank you. We work with the Society and Law Foundation, and we implemented together with the Association on Rights the project on prevention of discrimination and supporting the use of remedy mechanisms. We organized different activities for 3 different target groups we had. We held an event with the civil society organizations first and foremost, where we had 25 civil society organizations participating in the event. And this is one of the final events we were able to hold physically. We organized a needs analysis meeting to find out what the civil society organizations needed in terms of fighting against discrimination, and based on the needs we identified, we organized a training event on Zoom for rights literacy and law literacy. We informed the participants about national and international remedies, and we also shared information as to interview techniques to use when you're dealing with people who were exposed to discrimination, subject to discrimination. And we also informed people about the law on protection of personal data, because it's important to properly store the data of people who were subject to discrimination. We've also prepared a booklet on remedies against discrimination, published them in 5 languages, in Turkish, English, Arabic, Armenian. And you can find all of the outputs of our project on our website. I will share the link in the chat box, and you can download all materials in PDF format from the website. These are very short brochures, leaflets, but they are quite compact and give you the vital information that you would need on the subject. What we tried to achieve was to give out the message that nobody is alone when it comes to fighting against discrimination, because you cannot fight against such a thing on your own. And we tried to raise awareness in the society as well. And we also published a field research report on the issues faced while going for remedies against discrimination and perception of discrimination in Turkey. And the research showed us similar results to those of ESHIC research that was carried out several years ago, where we had 23% of the respondents that thought they were discriminated against several years ago. This figure went up tremendously in the research that we carried out. The perception for discrimination seems to be very high. We see these percentages, which are quite high, about the questions regarding perception of discrimination. Unfortunately, only 21% of people who thought they were subjected to discrimination wanted to go to courts, and that stemmed from the fact that they had low trust in the existing mechanisms. We also worked together with the jurists who would be working in the area of discrimination, and we prepared this guideline on the monitoring of discrimination, ban on discrimination, and remedies against discrimination. We've also shared the digital format, as you can see on the photo of this guideline, and we distributed this to various bar associations. We've reached out to 2,000 people in the bar associations. We've sent these materials to people who were involved in the law sector, and they are quite vital actors. Another pillar of the project had to do with monitoring and reporting. That was quite important to us. We reported 3 court cases, one of which had to do with an evaluation of the Article 122 of the Turkish Penal Code, and it talked about the legal process that was initiated by a trans individual who was not admitted to the Turkish bath of Galatasaray. That was important, and they won the case as well. And another monitoring report we had to do with a pregnant woman who was fired for being pregnant, and we had another court case which had to do with a murder event, and we publish all of our reports in 2 languages. Most of our outputs are published in several languages just to be able to reach out to more people and trying to provide professionals in the field with usable data. As you can see, our own output in material and written outputs were quite numerous, so we decided to switch to the animations and try to reach out to more people through visual arts. In Turkish, Kurdish, and in English, we produced 9 animated movies explaining what discrimination was, talking about perception of discrimination and ways to remedy. And you can click on the link and see the videos for yourselves. And we ask you kindly to share them wherever and whenever you can, so that more people can access the information in question. Another activity we held was to provide legal assistance to those who need it. We prepared this application form to enable people to get back to us with their questions, and this is a short snapshot of the animated movie in Kurdish. We also followed up some court cases, but we ran into some issues because of the pandemic, because the court cases were stalled for some period of time due to the pandemic restrictions. We've experienced similar problems. We've also used mapping data, especially in Turkey, public ombudsman applications to the Constitutional Court and applications to the Institution on Human Rights of Turkey. We've collected all of these application information. We asked for more information, writing to bar associations. Unfortunately, only a few select bar associations got back to us, and some of them told us that they could not support us. So we tried to access data on our own, thinking that the data made available would be useful for academics, for other professionals working in the field. So we kindly asked them to make use of the data we made available. Right. That's what we've basically targeted in our project. We don't want anyone to remain silent in the face of discrimination and feel alone. And that is why we try to strengthen all parties involved in the issue. And we would like to express our gratitude to Hrant Dink Foundation for lending their support to us. Hopefully I stick to the allocated time. Thank you very much. You've made an excellent presentation and told us about different layers, so many different layers of the fight against discrimination. So a big thank you. Now I'd like to invite to the floor to deliver the last presentation of the session. Pınar Ceylan, the floor is yours to deliver your presentation. Your camera seems to be off, switched off. If you could unmute yourself as well. Apologies, I had a connectivity issue earlier. Right, can you hear me now? I apologize, I lost my connection earlier. Excellent, please switch on your camera to be able to be broadcast live. Hello, this is Pınar from the Human Rights Foundation of Turkey, Istanbul office. First of all, let me express my gratitude to Ayşe Hanım, to Tengül Hanım, and Özkan Bey for organizing the event. I'm sure you have heard of our foundation before. The Foundation on Human Rights of Turkey was founded in 1990, and ever since its foundation, it's been fighting for the cause of human rights and against violations of human rights. Discrimination is the root cause of the human rights violations, we believe, and that's the theme around which we work. the environment and, of solidarity can also only be achieved by coping with the social traumas caused by rights violations and discrimination. This is the cover photo that we used on the report we prepared in 2019. Unfortunately, advocacy of human rights have been marginalized and criminalized in this day and age in our country. And in these tough times, one of the most effective ways to fight against violations of human rights is to make them visible and increase resilience of the society as well as the awareness of the society. We designed a number of activities under the project with this goal in mind. One of the activities we held was titled Human Rights for Everyone, which was a campaign we organized on social media. It was a long-term campaign, and as part of the campaign, we shared some excerpts from the human rights violations reports we prepared. We shot some videos on those rights violation issues in June, and in the Human Rights Week, we broadcast 2 short videos as well, and we have 2 other videos that are under preparation at the moment to be broadcast later. As an institution whose main goal is the treatment and rehabilitation of victims of torture, we didn't use social media previously quite actively, but we had increased our use of social media more and more in recent times, and we tried to focus our attention more on social media on these days. And during the pandemic period, we wanted to make rights violations more visible and reach out to younger generations, and realize that social media were quite a strong tool. For example, our weekly videos on rights violations reach about 4,000 to 5,000 people every week, and that is far above the number of readers, weekly readers we have on our reports. And the short videos we prepare, of which I'm sharing some visuals now, have reached out to tens of thousands of people, which is great news for us. And we would like to strengthen our online activities even more in the coming period. Besides the social media campaign in 2015 and 2016 in southeastern and eastern Anatolian residential areas, some curfews were implemented, and we carried out a memory study on these periods in the region. We carried out some documentation and reporting activities in the field, talking to people who were involved in the process, rights advocates, architects, social workers were involved in the interviews, and we are going to be publishing a book on the issue, documenting the demolitions, touching on subjects such as torture, rights violations suffered by children and women. So we will be looking at various aspects of the issue and documenting what happened. And the book will be published in English and in Turkish. And we will underline how important it is to have a multidisciplinary approach when studying such issues. And we will be reminding people that different disciplines can feed each other when merged together. We are currently preparing for a meeting on the first steps to cope with the social trauma that is ongoing in Turkey. And Nevin Hanım from a foundation has been contributing greatly to this event preparation. The visual you see at the moment has to do with the social trauma studies that have been going on for long years in Turkey, and that's the cover page. And in 2015, after the end of the emergency, state of emergency, we focused on the negative impact of the past practices in the field, and we will have an opportunity to discuss what has happened and what impact what has happened had on people, on the society. We've will be working with psychosocial workers and people from associations and foundations. And the feedback we received from these people were quite positive, saying that this meeting would be very meaningful. They would be more than happy to participate, and that would give them a platform to speak about these issues, which they didn't have before. We were hugely impacted by the pandemic that made us organize online events rather than physical ones. And this method has a lot of restrictions, limitations when it comes to organizing types of events that we would like to organize. So due to popular demand, we went for a hybrid format to organize our panels in June: urban demolition, justice, belonging, sense of belonging, and social justice. These panels will be organized in a hybrid format. We are also working on torture for documenting, preventing torture and mistreatment. We are working with court decisions of the European Court of Human Rights, and we bring together all kinds of materials and documents and then share the documentation and the materials on a website, allowing access to those who need the data on the website. And in June, the website will go online. And as part of the project, last but not least, we have been organizing youth events to allow them to share experiences. That's something we've been doing since 2015. Unfortunately, we've run into some problems during the pandemic period. We've only got back to a limited number of demands, requests we received. We held 15 sessions with more than 20 people, and we're completing our event with some of the colleagues who participated in this program. We continue to work as part of a mentorship program. This is it from the project, from my side. I thank you very much for your attention. Thank you. Thank you, Ms. Pınar. Thank you for sharing this valuable information. Human Rights Foundation of Turkey has been supporting civil society in Turkey for over 30 years. So big thank you for your efforts. Now we're moving into the Q&A session. Before we give a break, now just a reminder for you, you can type your questions down in the chat box. And if Pınar could end screen sharing, we can move on to the Q&A. You are welcome to share your questions in the chat box, or if you'd like to voice your questions, you can simply raise your hand on Zoom platform and take the floor. Now, let me take a look at the questions we received from the social media while allowing the time for our participants to ask questions. Sumru asks, how can I participate in the 24? I don't know what kind of participation she's referring to, as a journalist on the network. That's how I interpret the question, but over to you for the response.
Well, we are already an established platform. You can send an email to our platform. There is a section that says, do you want to be a participant? You can also send your inquiry through that segment. Being a participant means that your name will also feature on our website. So it means that you are taking a stance against censorship and self-censorship. You are making it publicly available, that information that you are against censorship. We also have specific meetings for our participants. As I said, we regularly call them to get information about the violations they're subjected to. And we also try to get their recommendations about projects. So that is one of the benefits of being a participant. So you can just send an email, that would be enough. Thank you. I think there is one more question on social media. To Ferda, I guess, to Tohab or Tihip, to Pınar. people whose rights are violated when they are fighting against discrimination. It's very important for them to have solidarity with the CSOs. Maybe you can further elaborate on this because you didn't have enough time. Maybe you listed all the stakeholders. Maybe Ferda, you can start first. Yes, I had 7 minutes and I tried to be brief, but fighting against discrimination is such a field that you cannot be active in this field alone. We have different fields, 3 different fields, like 3 pillars. Civil society organizations, and there are many civil society organizations that combat discrimination, and they also have insufficient means. Maybe not only CSO has a lawyer, a psychologist, the applicants, when they come to them, it's very important to provide them with support. So empowering those CSOs are very important, we thought, in terms of fighting against discrimination. So application mechanisms are both available at national and international level. When we had our needs assessment meeting, we asked the participants a question. We sent them a questionnaire and we asked them where they have applied so far, how they applied. Monitoring and reporting activities are done by everyone, but international application processes are not sufficiently provided. And we understood that most of the CSOs do not have the adequate means. So we try to empower them in terms of the means and instruments that are available for them, so that when there is an application coming to an institution, if they do not have any support, legal aid, psychologists, etc., in terms of cooperating with other institutions, we try to empower them. So we didn't only provide trainings to them, but we also helped them come together to create a network of their own. And while we were doing this, we were inviting many CSOs that fight against discriminations. We also helped create a network along the country. And in terms of lawyers, through the bar associations, we tried to work. When we're preparing the training kit, that was our aim. We tried to reach out to as many lawyers as possible so that they would be aware of our activities when they have a case or a file about discrimination, so that they would know where to apply and how they could follow the processes through the help of this booklet. So that's what we tried to prepare in general. And of course, TOHAF is a foundation established of or by a lawyer. So that's anyway a general activity that we have. And we tried to empower them even more. Maybe one of the most important pillars is the victims, because the field study report indicated that there is a huge number of people who are subjected to discrimination, but a majority of them do not use legal remedies. Only 21% actually use this. They don't know where to apply, they don't know how to apply, but the most fundamental reason is that they're not even aware that they are subjected to discrimination. Yes, there is a discrimination, but they don't know that it's discrimination. They don't know their rights. That's why it's important to teach these people so that they will be aware of this. So through the animations we prepared, we try to show them this, and we try to explain them the fact that we can also discriminate against certain people without even realizing it. We can use the discriminatory language, and we can also cause discrimination. So raising awareness in this field is also very important. So the most important thing of this project is that we will be both empowering the 3 pillars and also raise awareness among the society. So but when there is an issue, we can work all together, because we say speak up against discrimination, but speaking up is not enough. You need to be proactive and you need to fight against this so that it will also be prevented. That's all I can say. Thank you. There is a question to Pınar. As the Human Rights Foundation, regarding the rights of LGBTI people, especially hate murders against trans individuals, what are your activities over the last 30 years, or has there been any activity in that field? Just a reminder. Pınar, are you here? Yes, yes, you're here and you can hear me. Yes, the floor is yours. I would like to apologize. I think Pınar is having a connection problem. Yes, I got disconnected. So which question are you referring to? The one in the chat box? Yes. In our foundation, well, our main field of activity is the rehabilitation and treatment of victims of torture. Pınar, so rehabilitation of victims of torture. Pınar, says the moderator, there is a question to Sumru. Maybe in the meanwhile you can solve your connection problem because we can't hear you. Or maybe you can write down your answer in the chat box and let me ask the question to Sumru in the meanwhile. While working in the field of censorship or making publications against this, are you personally also subject to censorship yourself? Yes, of course, we are censored as well. Sometimes we publish the news or we cover the news of access bans. For instance, if there is news of Evrensel newspaper or the website of Evrensel is banned, there is an access ban against this, we make news of that, we cover the news of that, and that news is also banned. So we make another news saying that the news on the access ban was banned, and then we again cover the news. So this happens very frequently recently. And also most recently, what happens is that previously when we received a notification of an access ban, the content provider or the content providing platform did not have to remove the content. It will be the service providers like Turkcell, etc., that would actually do that. But most recently, now we receive demands to remove the content. So apart from the access ban, you are also asked to remove the content, and the content provider is responsible for this. And you just have 4 hours, I guess, if I'm not mistaken, to do that. So we have to remove. And this may be considered as a self-censorship, which is not, by the way. We have to remove and then we object. We try to lodge an application to the relevant constitutional authority. But as you know, it takes a long time to get a response from them. And what I can say is that when there is a breach of personal rights, they ask us to remove these news, especially when there is a news about corruption, for instance, or a news about a government official. Again, corruption related news are most frequently receiving, are the ones most frequently receiving access ban or content removal requests. I said we will have a film festival on censored films. Of course, it's always a risk to screen the films that are still having a trial process, so we're taking a risk. We don't know what will happen. Pınar, I think you are writing your answer on the chat box, so let me try to be your voice and read out your question. So the main activity is rehabilitation and treatment of torture, and in terms of their legal rights and right to have a lawyer, and in terms of prevention of torture, we take all our activities as a whole, you say. I guess that's the answer. So we also include the LGBTI individuals in our overall efforts. Okay, thank you so much. If there is no further comment you would like to make, we will have a 5-minute break. Then we will proceed with the last session of today, whereby we will have PI Youth Association. Welcome back. Before we proceed with the last session of the day, we would like to ask a question to you. What are the top 2 things that should be done to protect human rights in Turkey? Please write your answers in the chat box. Thank you. Now I'll give the floor to Seda Şahin and Melisa Demirkıran from the PI Youth Association. Hello to Tangil. Thank you so much for also giving us a voice in such a platform. It's very nice for us to come back together with such nice organizations. My name is Seda. I am the project coordinator in the PI Youth Association. And this is Melisa. I'm the project assistant at PI Youth Association. Today, we will talk about the story of local youth associations network, or the Empowering Youth Organizations for Rights-Based and Inclusive Youth Work in long. But before that, let's take a look at the civil society in Turkey briefly. In Turkey, when we look at the civil society in general, we see that there is a lack of system in terms of how it functions. As long as you don't have a system that works within a structure, there can always be a lot of problems. The civil society structure is based on aid organizations or hometown associations, but with the women's work, the civil society was introduced with rights-based activities and advocacy work, and we as the PAYA Youth Association are among those associations that work in the field of youth rights and issues. In Turkey, there are 755 youth associations, but they're still considered in the same class as sports activities. Among youth, we have to have actually a specific field such as women, people with disabilities, or children. And as participation of young people in life and democratic governance, we do believe that the change and evolution will start. And with that purpose, we were established back in 2014 in Izmir. We want to develop the rights of the young people and focus on their problems, build their capacities, and also support the people who work in the field of youth work. And for 7 years, we have been continuing to work and produce. And for that, for youth organizations, we have established this setup so that we will be helping them to work on a rights-based approach and to increase their capacities. And we had planning to increase their capacities and awareness so that they could be working in the fields of human rights and fight against discrimination. Thanks to the support we received from KUSIF, the Koç University Social Impact Forum, we came up with a wonderful plan, and we now know what we will do at what time and why we will do it. We have a very good team. And about the project, one of the initial activities was a survey, actually, within the framework of this project, whereby we want to support youth workers and organizations. We tried to prepare a survey to measure their perception of rights-based activities. We included 318 youth workers in this survey activity. So we took stock of the of things. And then we had our advisory board meeting, which was a milestone for us. We had face-to-face meetings 5 times with this advisory board composed of 6 people, and we wanted to make sure that they were established of experts, and this is very important for us. And in September, we organized 2 search conferences from Edirne, Iğdır, Kırklareli, Van, from many different places of Turkey. We received 146 applications, and the first conference was organized with 27 participants between 4th and 6th of September, and we tackled the issues such as who's a youth worker, what is youth work, what are the problems in the field, how will the network to be established work, on what basis. And one of our common arguments was that youth work was not, unfortunately, considered as an occupation. The second search conference was organized with 33 participants between 11th and 13th of September. The content of the conference were exactly the same as the previous one, and we had taken notes and shared the results with the participants. After the conferences, in order to establish the founding members of our association, we made a call from 42 cities. We received 85 applications, and we had online meetings or interviews with 80 different organizations. And to have an objective selection criteria, we actually rated the organizations anonymously, and the 41 organizations that received the highest rating were included among our founding organizations, and we established our network. And we had a survey activity between June and July 2020. We had this survey on an online platform. We reached out to 2,481 organizations and individuals, and 318 of them responded back, and we analyzed and prepared a report with the answers of 248 participants. And out of the 248 participants, 193 of them responded saying that they cannot make a living solely on youth work. And most frequently, the most frequent concepts that come to people's mind when you say human rights is that they think of justice and law, equality, and anti-discrimination activities, as well as right to life. So you can reach the results of the report through our website. So we wanted to gather the youth work and the reports on a platform, and we prepared a portal to make sure that youth organizations will come together. So this is an ongoing activity that we have pursued since the beginning of the project. In order to have more information in the field of youth, in this portal, we have an online toolkit. Please take a look at that. We highly recommend it to you. In addition to the portal, at the same time, the social media accounts of our associations are also sharing content about the project goals. We believe in the power of social media, so we do not want to increase capacity and raise awareness of people working in this field, but we wanted to reach out to as many people as possible. As I said, we believe in the power of social media. That's why we prepared a communication plan accordingly, and we follow that up regularly. And the youth organizations members to the network, in order to increase their capacities in the field of rights-based work, we prepared 3 trainings. First one was carried out on the 29th of March, between 29th of March and 2nd of April, with the participation of 33 people. In this training, we tackled issues such as the historical revolution of human rights, democracy and civil society relation, and human rights relation, social rights and advocacy. And this was an interactive training. You can also see some examples from newspaper clippings that the participants prepared. And the other 2 trainings that we have planned are going to be about the combat against discrimination and the rights of young people. And the first one will be prepared on discrimination, fight against discrimination. And with this network that we established thanks to the help of Hrant Dink Foundation grant program, we will continue to further increase the capacity of our network members. And thank you very much for your attention. Well, thank you indeed. You've shared the results of your project with us. And thank you very much for continuing your activities during this challenging year. So I will introduce the last speaker. We have Hakan Özgür from Social Rights and Research Association.
Ladies and gentlemen, I would like to welcome you, and I would like to thank the Hrant Dink Foundation for this excellent organization, bringing CSOs together. I haven't had such a good opportunity for quite some time. Thank you. I'd like to talk about the Social Rights and Research Association. We work for the disadvantaged groups. In the past 6-7 years, we specifically focus on the rights of the disabled. We do advocacy work. We support mechanisms for advocacy. We make applications, we carry out research activities in this field. And we were given this grant opportunity. So with that, we decided to carry out a monitoring activity I'd like to present to you. We of course know why we do monitoring. We need to find out what the problem is in the field. We wanted to find out about the problems, the causes, the sources. We do monitoring, documentation, and reporting. This helped us understand the problem in an objective manner, and hopefully this could influence the policies and inform the policies, maybe shed light to other CSOs, members of academia, who also work in the same field. So basically, this is why we launched into this effort. And we hope this will strengthen human rights as well. We focused on 6 rights, as you see on the slide. And the legal basis for us was the Convention on the Rights of the Persons with Disabilities. What are these? Not to be subjected to torture, inhuman, degrading treatment or punishment, not to be subjected to abuse, violence, and exploitation, to pursue an independent living and integration with society, individual mobility, habilitation and rehabilitation, and having a sufficient life standard. These are the 6 rights we focused on. This slide presents the targets we had in the short term. The Turkish society don't really see the disabled on the streets. It's as if they're invisible. They're not out there. So we wanted to make their situation visible. We wanted to make the violations, if there are any, visible. We wanted to have concrete data sharing, and we wanted to provide a basis for advocacy work. Another goal we had was to ensure compliance with the United Nations Convention on the Rights of the Disabled and the law on the rights of the disabled. This slide gives you a list of the lessons we learned, what we found out. On paper, the situation is like that in Norway. There seems to be such a legal system, de jure, whereas de facto, that's not happening. That's what we found out. There are some discriminatory phrases in the law. Let's say one graduated from Faculty of Law, completed a traineeship as a lawyer, but because one is disabled, one cannot become a judge. There is such a discriminatory practice. This is law number 2802. This is an article in the law, and all the stakeholders are aware of this article in the law. So some problems are caused by the law itself. We couldn't find this aggregated data. We couldn't find detailed disaggregated data. There is no proper registry system. That's another finding we had as a result of our work. And there is no monitoring and evaluation conducted by the Disabled Rights Committee. One other finding, the government has a new functioning, new structure. In the past, we somehow got an answer to our request for information, whereas this rate to get an answer to your request for information is quite low these days. For example, including a Middle East Technical University. Even such institutions get back to you saying, quote, they decided not to share information, unquote. So there is such a resistance mechanism. Let's move on. The pandemic also changed things. The picture is quite striking. We evaluated this data we present here. This concerns employment rates. In 2019, there is a very sharp reduction in the rates of employment, not just for disabled, for everyone. This association published a report regarding employment rates. And their findings are quite similar. The situation is similar for the disabled compared to the general population. Whereas in the disabled group, the situation is, of course, worse. How about fundamental rights and freedoms and being a social state? The situation has remained the same for long years. There is social support, social assistance, and cash assistance. It's as if disabled rights is all about cash assistance, like providing cash support or home care support. Well, this is not all about financial support. It's about human rights. It's about exercise of rights, and it has to be sustainable. There is no clear roadmap in this area. Yes, there is social assistance available. And unfortunately, in the past 5 years, there was a 31% reduction in the social assistances extended to these people. Let's take a look at the municipalities. They also extend support. But it's very limited. We had a research conducted 3 years ago about the accessibility of aid. We updated the results this year. 1,500,000 households, no, a correction, public buildings we have in Turkey. Only 895 of them are accessible for the disabled. This is an unbelievable rate. We still wait for more data to come. We will, of course, publish the data, updated data on our website. This is the end of my presentation. Thank you very much. Hakan Bey, thank you. Thank you for this valuable information you shared in 7 minutes. Let's start the question and answer session. Seda Hanım and Melissa Hanım. They are with us. Well, you could type your questions in the chat box or feel free to raise hand using the participants button. There is a question I'd like to read out, a question to P Youth Association. You've been working with youth organizations for a long time. You created a network in this field and you met with new organizations. You met with new people in this process. After this introduction, what is your take about the need? What are the needs of the youth advocacy work? What are your observations? Let me start first, and then I'll hand it over to my colleague. Here's the problem. In 2004, Erasmus Plus project started. Since then, youth associations started to act as if they are tourism agencies. But that's not what they are. This is disturbing. When you scan the social media, you, yes, see an emphasis on Erasmus Plus activities, but that's not all about it. Every month, we organize 2 rights-based trainings every month for the past 5 years. Well, that's unfortunately a little bit disturbing. People consider us as tourism agencies. So I think it's good that we have this project. We believe that will be a watershed moment for us. I'd like to say something. Being a youth worker, it's not considered as a profession. People are not able to concentrate their efforts into this profession. Usually people have another profession to make a living, and being a youth worker is something on top of their profession. So they don't have enough time. This may hinder their activities. They have very limited time and limited economic means. So that's another problem. This should be considered as a profession. It should be economically supported for the workers. Thank you. Hakan Bey, you've been reporting for a long time and you have acquired new data, although you can't share all of them right now. Maybe there is one specific point you would like to highlight at the moment that might be relevant with the pandemic conditions. Any recent development you would like to specifically share with us? One other thing, in reporting, I believe there is a great benefit of reporting in policymaking. And what is your take on that? In request for information, in trying to get information from the government, we use so many different techniques and ways to facilitate the government's response. We use different techniques. different methods, and we ask very concrete, to the point, concise questions, so it could be easier for them to reply. However, recently, especially in the past few years, it has become even more difficult to receive information. There is such a gap, and we would like to fill this gap, and we're increasing the diversity of the resources. We would like to use them for documentation. We carry out qualitative research, media scan activities, and we do verification. During the pandemic, the education system and the rehabilitation centers have started to have great problems. That's our observation. The disabled cannot go to these rehabilitation centers, cannot receive service. And now the damage, unfortunately, is beyond repair at the moment. To tell you the truth, no one in the world was prepared for the pandemic, but Turkey was not prepared at all. Even the CSOs, well, we are working based on half professionalism, half voluntarism. CSOs have been able to adapt so fast to the pandemic, one needs to admit. Civil society adapted quite well. Why not the governments? Is there an excuse for governments not to adapt so well to the pandemic? Because CSOs could do that. The government has a very important responsibility to do that for the citizens. There's a question here from Derya Hanım to Hakan Bey. Right to petition is a subject of our research, and right to petition is quite different than right to acquire information. Do you also work on that? Do you also have applications regarding this? There are two categories of applications for us. One has to do with applications to acquire information within the scope of the law. Here, the content is only about acquiring the data information in the hands of the government. The other category is the right to petition regarding an act to take place or not to take place, a right to be instituted or not. So this is also a second category. So we use both means. Sometimes our application is rejected, then we apply to the ombudsperson's office, we apply to the court. We also use the judicial mechanisms. Doing that, we try to raise awareness. We try to remind the government of its liabilities. It is the government's responsibility to give information. They have to do this. Do we have to make so much effort, so many efforts? But that's what we're doing. That shouldn't be the case. So right to petition, I think it should be considered as an administrative application process. I think this is what is meant. Thank you. A question to both organizations. First, I'd like to hand it over to P-Youth Association. The participant says, thank you for the presentation regarding the disabled, refugees and children. Do you carry out works for this target group? Could you tell us more about their works? A question asked by Aslı Kandemir. And the answer is, I'll start. We don't have an active project at the moment. However, we had in the past about youth mobility. This is called European Cooperation for Refugees, conducted in 2018. Right now, we are writing down a project proposal, but we don't have an active one up and running at the moment. While in our field, we work with some youth and women organizations, and refugee migrant organizations. We already have a cooperation with them. We can't directly provide service to all those individuals. It's not possible. Here's what we do. We try to provide a social benefit in what we do. In the field, we observe some situations like that. And to the extent possible, especially, we try to help those organizations regarding the legislation concerning the disabled, the mechanisms. We introduce the mechanisms, so we do our best to support them. Thank you very much for your comments, for the questions. This is the end of our session, and we would like to thank you all for your participation. Please write down 3 takeaways from today's session. Thank you for being a part of this. Your contribution and participation was valuable to us. I'd like to thank the CSOs who took the time to join us here to share their experience with us. They shared their journey with us. We hope you liked it. We hope you are more hopeful by the end of this session. By the way, an evaluation form is now shared in the chat box. We would appreciate if you could fill it out. So I would like to thank the listeners, the interpreters, and all the back office team for this event. And we hope to see you as soon as possible.